Commander Central episode 157, and today we'll be doing a Command Fest wrap-up and taking a look at a couple of listener decks. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Oh, guys, it feels good to be back in the basement of love. How's it going?
He came back.
Yeah, he did.
I have returned. You don't need to replace me with a robot at this point.
Not yet.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for picking up my slack when I was gone. You guys did a couple of good shows.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I listened to one of them.
We actually got compliments on Slack about our show, too, and I was really worried about that show.
Oh, me too.
Were you?
Yep, both of us were. After we were done, I'm like, I hope that show's good.
Yeah.
I really do.
No, you guys did a nice job. I was impressed. I was worried I would come back and be like, we don't need you anymore. See ya.
Yeah, we debated.
I'll be completely honest. Having a third person's a lot easier because you can bounce around more between everybody.
Sure.
I
yes.
100% agree with that.
Well, I had a long week. I left here. For those that don't know, we are just east of Minneapolis. So I left here on, would have been a Tuesday, and drove past Chicago, past Cleveland, almost all the way to Pittsburgh. And then Thursday night drove from there all the way back to Chicago for the Command Fest. So I put on, I guess I didn't even check my mileage yet for work. I need to check and see how much I drove, but it was a lot. So that was a busy lead up to Command Fest for me. But Command Fest Chicago was a really, really, really good time. I'm glad I went. I hope they have more next year, and if they do, I will be definitely going to them.
For sure. I will try to attend as many as possible next year as well.
Yeah,
I hope there's one in Minneapolis.
yeah. I would not
I don't want
be
to make
shocked.
the 6-hour drive to Chicago.
That was a haul. Yeah.
We could fly the jumper plane from here to Chicago.
That's
it's
true.
like $200 round trip.
That's why I say when I win the lottery, I will buy a helicopter. And I'm just
Commander
going to
Central.
fly
We'll
everywhere.
just go to Command Fest and go to Magic Fest everywhere. I ran into a lot of listeners, Andy, Sieb, Carlos, Victoria, Kenneth, Matt, Mike Hampton, Darren, Trevor, Aaron Campbell. There was someone from the K-Pop Kimchi podcast, which I was not familiar with, but I played at least one game with him.
I like kimchi.
And K-pop, which I don't really listen to,
And I'm not a big fan of K-pop.
we had
but
some good K-pop
hey,
conversations.
There we go.
I don't know what either of those things are, so.
K-pop is Korean pop music,
Okay.
and kimchi is a food. A pickled something, like
Yeah.
a pickled seaweed or something.
Interesting.
I think
Now
traditionally it was buried in a jar,
Yeah.
I think, and fermented, I believe.
Well, I will try everything once in my life.
There we
so.
go.
Kimchi is a staple in Korean cuisine. It's famous as a traditional side dish of salted and fermented vegetables such as cabbage and radishes.
There we go.
Interesting.
Thank you, Google.
So
Yay,
yeah,
Google.
there was a ton of people there. It didn't have like the celeb power that I think Seattle had, but
Well,
the
Seattle's isn't that where SCG
that's
is?
that's where
or
everybody
whatever?
is.
No,
yeah,
that's where WotC is.
That's where
WotC
WotC
is.
is. That's where Card Kingdom is, and it's also West Coast. Anyone who's in California just went there because why would you come to Chicago in November when you could just go to Seattle? So, but it was successful. I would recommend if you are a listener and you weren't sure about going. If you're a Commander player, it's the best part of it's the best parts of like a Magic Fest for the entire event. So it was pretty excellent. Highly recommended.
Good.
The couple things I would say, there were a few deck power mismatches, but by and large, everyone did the Rule Zero conversation, and it was pretty smooth.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So Dana pulled out Reki.
I played Reki, I think, 3 times, and I don't think I won a game with him over the weekend.
We have prepared the masses, Chris.
The power level was...
No, this is what it is. He was like, "Oh, they're harassing me. This deck's too good, so I'm just not going to play it right." And
Pull punches.
everyone's not going to believe him
I'll say
anymore.
I did save that deck for matches where, based on what everyone was pulling out, I was like, this is going to be a little bit more powerful of a matchup, so I did tend to save it for those. But in those matchups, I think it played at those power levels for the most part.
Okay.
The mismatches that I would say I had where I felt like I was playing at a higher power level than the pods I was in tended to probably be more a me as a deck builder and a player mismatch, I would say, than a card mismatch in the decks. Because I'm playing decks, even my newer decks are a year or two old, and I've been tweaking them the whole time. So even if I'm not necessarily dropping like a Mana Crypt or Fast Mana or a Sheila Dread or an Avacyn Archangel or something that I'm shooting into play, I wasn't doing those things, but I think the synergies between cards in a relatively tuned deck was where the advantages were. I was able to, play cards that all played really well together versus I saw enough people dropping a card where I'm like, well, that card is just in your deck because you had one versus it working well in your deck.
Yeah.
So those were the large mismatches, and I think those things probably tend to go away the longer you play. Your deck tends to have less of those things. I did see a lot of cool decks. I did not see very many repeats. I think the only repeat commander I saw more than... I saw a couple twice, but I think I saw Corvald 4 or 5 times. But other than that, I think 2 times was the most I saw commander.
Very interesting. Like, I think Corvald's really cool when I kind of expected to hear that you saw it multiple times,
Yeah.
but...
Didn't see a Tulane at all.
Oh, darn.
I saw one. No, I think 2 Atraxa decks. One was Super Friends. One was Horror Tribal, which was pretty cool.
I like it.
It almost milled me out. I was down to 7 cards,
Wow.
so that was pretty cool to see. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of good a good variety of decks, which was neat to see. The one other thing I did see multiple times, I will mention. Was people watching games that would comment on them in a way that kind of interfered with tables, because there was so many people there that there tended to be sometimes someone standing around watching a game.
Yep.
And there was, it's not really interference, but like, hey, why did you do that? What did you play that card for? And that's a little disruptive. And there was actually even one person I knew who was there who did that, like as a joke to me, like kills commander. And then, went off to do something else. And it's done as a joke, but like the rest of the table then is like, why is that guy here?
Yes.
And then I'd be like, oh, he's just a guy I know. He was, basically like, giving me crap. But there was other people that weren't doing that. There were people that were like just wandering by tables, and they'd see something like, why did you just do that? And then they'd wander off.
Right.
So it's like, if you're at one of these things, I would say avoid doing that. That was kind of disruptive.
That can actually become a thing that you can bring up to judges.
Sure, absolutely, in a tournament for sure. But even in a casual game like that, like if you're someone who's spent time working to make yourself not appear to be the threat, and you've succeeded and pulled that off, and then someone's walking by the table and like, why aren't you guys killing his stuff? And then you wander off. That sucks to see your work kind of go away too, because someone has just kind of done a drive-by.
I'm gonna say that about Dana every time. I try to convince people to kill his stuff when I'm in the table.
If you're in the
with them.
game, but if you're in the game, that's a different thing, because then like I haven't fooled you,
Yep.
right? So. Yeah, I think it wasn't, again, that wasn't a big deal, but I saw it 3 or 4 different times, or heard it happen at someone else's table too.
I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna print out like 70 flyers, and I'm gonna stand at the door of our LGS.
When you see this man kill his
whenever
commander,
someone
right.
comes in, I'm just gonna hand them it and just, here you go.
See, now this is what you need to do though. Like, change the picture every week and make it someone else that typically shows up on Tuesdays.
Like a wanted poster.
Yeah, first person to eliminate someone from a game gets a prize.
Not a bad idea.
Like it.
Nice.
So Max didn't play any games this week,
No, I was sick.
but Chris was there to shop.
Bull. I don't believe that he was sick.
I was.
Think something nefarious was up?
I do.
Half a bottle of NyQuil. That's how sick I was.
So how are your games, Chris?
Horrendous.
You were there.
I
but
didn't
play.
lose. I didn't win a single game.
No, horrendous.
No. I take that back. I won one game, which was literally the table not paying attention. Like they're all like focused, and they like kill one guy, and they both tapped out, and I'm just like, oh, so I have a trampler here, and my I was playing Mogus, and so now my commander's online too with devotion, and I just kill you and attack you with the other guy and kill you because you guys are both a single digit life. And they're
Nice.
like, oh yeah, I suppose. I'm like, oh. Did not feel like a good win at all.
Well, I had to stumble across a combo one because we had talked, Max, recently about dropping to 35 lands in a couple of decks.
Yes.
And I mentioned in my Vela deck I was going to do that, and I wanted to put in Divining Top. And I
Oh,
could-
Lord, how did that work out?
Well, so my thought process at that point was, okay, if I draw that top instead of the land, well, I can play the top and use it to probably find a land. Like there's if I'm going to make the transition, that's a pretty smooth way to do it. What I didn't anticipate was being in a game where I had Mystic Forge out and a cost reducer.
Oh, like a Chief of the Foundry or something.
Yeah, it was Dwyer's Familiar in this case, but then that basically means I can draw my deck because you tap top to draw a card, put top back on top, which you can then cast
For free,
and then tap top to put it back
So
on
you
top.
cut Mystic Forge.
I'm cutting top and probably putting the land back in because Mystic Forge is useful, and without the top, it's just a useful card. I don't have ways to cheat it then at that point. So yeah, I hadn't really anticipated that. So I did it in the game once I saw it because at that point too, you don't want to be like, I could win the game right now, but I'm not going to. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to win. So I just drew my library and played whatever it was that won the game and did that, and that was it. But yeah, I took top. I've since taken top out of the deck.
I would have taken the reducer out because you run multiples.
I do. But then I'd have to take all of them out. I'd have to take Dweger's Familiar and Chief of the Foundry, and there's at least one more. Cloud Key, and I have 4 of them. Semblance Anvil, too.
Okay, so Mystic Forge. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I will and put Phyrexian Arena back in that spot. That's something I could do as well.
What's the Citadel?
Citadel's even worse.
I was gonna say, I'm surprised that's not in that deck right now.
Because I thought Sacred Foundry would be a less abusive version of that. And it is, unless I have Divining Top out.
Right. Mystic
So-
Forge. Ooh. That deck is bonkers.
It's much better than I thought it would be, and I've since tuned it enough that it's
Good.
really
good.
it's effective.
Looks like
So-
I'm going to have to start tuning my decks then. I already have one in mind that I'm tuning, so.
Well, that leaps us to our next thing I was going to ask you guys here. Is anyone, how's the brewing going? Is anyone brewing anything new? I know Max was working on Morph on Humans.
Slow and steady humans are coming.
Okay.
So maybe by like 2020.
Okay. All right. You're hoping by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I could have that put together next week.
The Morph on Humans
Yes.
deck? I suppose you have a lot of stuff from
Yes,
Modern.
I do.
How about you, Chris? Anything you're working on? You said you have an idea.
I'm tuning my mill deck
Okay.
because I'm going to use it in our two-headed giant
Neat.
commander tournament. So it's going to be very mean. Very, very mean.
Well, but the thing about that deck, I would say, is at least that's a pretty easy, a pretty safe deck to tune because it's mill. There's a power cap on it,
Yes.
regardless of what you do.
And when you only have to mill out one person, it's
Right,
a different story
right.
than milling out the table.
Yeah.
I've got a couple decks. So the first thing I was kind of working on, I at least like in theory, I didn't actually put any cards on. I was trying to figure out if I could do a Niv Mizzet Reborn Exalted deck. So 5-color Exalted.
And make all your dual colored cards, instants and sorceries?
Yeah, I mean, you basically draw. When I cast Miz, you draw a couple free things and play them and
Right.
make run a bunch of charms and things like that. And there's a couple exalted creatures that are dual color too. So and then just don't run the single cover removal spells. Run like Terminate and run things of that nature for your removal spells as opposed to Pontify or something. So I've been kind of thinking about that, but man, I just do not like the looks of a 5-color deck. Too
They're
many
hard.
choices.
They're hard.
Yeah.
I got to build a green deck of some sort. It's the only color I do not play.
Okay.
And I have many, many really nice cards that are in green that just sit and collect dust in my binders.
Any ideas for commanders you're thinking?
No. Maybe I'll build that Chulane and just really make everyone salty.
Mono green
no,
Chulane.
no one
green
else
Chulane.
is playing. No, honestly, I was talking with a buddy of mine. I'm thinking about playing Gruul monsters, but playing Najila as my commander.
Okay.
So if my monster strategy doesn't go off, then I just die from Najila.
That's true. Yeah, that would be
But I
interesting.
want to play big fatties. That's why I want to play green. I want to just play big fatties repeatedly.
Okay. I also have been kind of on paper kicking around a Samet double strike deck. Running all
Nice.
double strike creatures with Samet because she has haste,
Gives everything else haste.
gives everything else haste. It's 3-color deck, but it lets me. I could technically run it as a 2-color deck if I wanted to. It gives you a lot of options in terms of how you want to tweak the color balance.
I've just thought of it.
All right.
Oh, no, I don't know what I'm going to build.
Okay,
But I actually
okay.
have a really close friend of mine who has one EDH deck. And he was going to get into Modern, so he has the majority of all these fetches and stuff.
Sure.
So we're going to take him in and trade him in for cards for Commander. And he wants to build something. I said, we should build green, because I have to build green too, so we'll do it together. And I think I'm going to have him build Chulane, since he's a brand new player.
Sure. Right. If you're a
yep.
new player, there's only so much you can do with it.
Yeah, and just be like, okay, we're going to just cast creatures, draw cards, and play lands. That's what we're going to do with this deck.
No
Very
Allura.
straightforward, yeah.
Okay.
I like it. I like that
Yeah.
idea.
Because then he'll have more fun because it'll just be like, oh, and I can play this, and then I can play this one, and then someone's like board wipe, and he's like, cool, well, I have all these lands, so I'll replay my commander, and we'll just start the chain over again. And
Well, my goal here is to have something in paper to at least try out at the shop by the end of the year.
There you go.
So I want to at least have one new deck and one more deck I've given a go to. Because I've tried a couple this year. I had done the mono red deck, Farchild, and I can't remember what else.
You still had like black-white legends for a while this year, didn't you?
I had Arvet earlier in the year, yeah. So I want to do at least one more and give it a try this year and see if I can make it stick. So it'll be one of those, I think. Next thing I will briefly talk about is the mystery packs were unveiled like 2 hours ago.
That is very true.
I'm not sure if Chris even saw that. Did you see what they were?
no. I was watching The Masked Singer on TV, so before I came here, and then all of a sudden it's like, there's another episode, and I'm like, oh no, I have to leave.
Well, they were at Richmond?
Yep.
At the GP,
Magic Fest Richmond.
So they had these mystery packs they've been kind of hyping for the
I
last
remember
couple
them
weeks.
talking about them. Yep.
And they finally cracked them open,
Okay.
and they are basically a chaos draft.
It is, the grab bags at the shop?
Yep.
It's that, but better.
So there was cards from like up to Origins, if not newer.
So we're going to pause. I found the Hipsters of the Coast thread on this.
Okay.
I wonder if it's backstock that they haven't been able to sell the stores.
But they all have like that plain. They've been reprinted. They're new
They
printings
are
really?
a new reprinting.
because they have like a little symbol in the bottom left
Left-hand
corner,
Okay.
which is new. They're cards from all different eras of Magic, as far as I could tell.
Yep. So actually, Hipsters of the Coast on Twitter got some stats from Gavin at the event. So the packs contain 1 playtest card,
Which we'll get into in a second.
2 commons are uncommons of each color, 1 multicolored card, 1 artifact or land card, 1 old card frame slot, and 1 rare from M15 forward. They go on to say that the full info and set list, this is a complete set, will be out on Monday. The oldest card set in the old frame slot is Mirage. That's as far back as they're going.
And I saw a couple of Odysseys, at
Yep.
least.
Saw some EMA, Mana Crypts.
Yeah. So there was Mana Crypt, at least one someone pulled. But the test card slot is, I think, the first card in the pack.
Yes.
And you've seen pictures of the cards that they test with where it's a sticker over the top of a
Yep.
card. Well, it looks like that. It's not actually a sticker, but it's printed to look like that. And it's hand-drawn art and and they're all super weird test cards.
Is that the one that you sent me the picture
I
of?
did. I sent Chris one, Sliv Mizzet Hive
Yeah,
Mind,
yep.
2 blue, red for a legendary creature, Dragon Sliver 4/4. Slivers you control have flying, and whenever you draw a card, this creature deals 1 damage to any target, and you can tap to draw a card.
So there's one of those weird cards in every pack.
I want that Niv Mizzet.
Is it Slivers?
But it's only available at Magic Fests until spring, I think.
March 2020, the LGS version of these packs will be released.
Looks like it would be a fun
'Cause
draft
We
environment.
have enough Commander product
Yes.
coming out next year.
Yeah.
Which we'll probably get to here shortly.
So we might as well then just jump into that a little bit here too, because you guys touched on it a little bit on the show on Monday.
We did without you. So what are your thoughts on all the announcements for next
So
year?
I think if you really think about it, it's not as bad as it seems. Well, I shouldn't say
Chris
bad.
has the dwarf face going on
Okay,
right now.
we'll get Theros in January, which is a normal January set. The Commander decks come out in March along with Ikoria, so that's going to be crazy because
Yeah.
you'll have a set like we always do,
And 5 pre-con.
in five Commander decks versus 4. But we've had 5 decks in the past. It's usually in November or August, but we'll get those 5. We'll have a core set in the summer, Zendikar in the fall, and then
And a supplemental, 3 supplemental sets somewhere in there.
and we'll see. There's other things that make it announced that might change it, and then Commander Masters in November, I think. But the other 4 Commander decks that only have 3 new cards in them, that's skippable. That's almost like the Planeswalker Precon decks. If you want that Commander, you can maybe buy it, but you just buy the singles. The rest of the cards are all reprints, so you don't need them. Matter of fact, if you skip it, you can just sit back and enjoy the prices dropping on stuff. That's nice. Same thing with that signature Commander Master's Green Signature Spellbook, whatever it's called.
Commander
There
Collection Green.
The same thing like that. Like, if you want it, you want it. If you don't, you can just enjoy the prices going down.
Gotta be in my collection. Like
That's true. Well,
I said, it's got to go up on the shelf with the other spell books.
That's true. Okay.
I need all those foil nature lores.
And I will definitely wind up getting it, but it's also one of those things that it's like if you don't want it,
then don't buy it.
you'll get it. So and if you don't get it, you just get to enjoy the benefits of prices dropping, which is nice.
Right.
So like, there's a lot of product, but I don't think it's necessarily like a lot of it's pretty skippable. The big one will be March when you have Ikoria and 5 decks, not 4.
Yep.
And there's more new cards than usual in those too. So that's going to be a glut. And you're
hopefully
right.
this isn't like Brawl and I get shafted on pre-orders again.
And we'll probably also, it wouldn't surprise me to see us get a Battle Bond / conspiracy thing somewhere that hasn't been announced yet.
Or some sort of Modern Horizons or something like that.
But
or
like
maybe Commander Legends is the Modern Horizons for this year.
Because weren't they talking about a new unset or something that they were going to do?
They're the unset pre-con decks that are coming out in like February.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, that's skippable for Commander
They
players.
always do something like that, it seems like every year, something that's a draft type set.
And same thing with these mystery packs. That I guess there's no new cards in them aside from the ones that aren't legal in Commander, the test cards. So like that's something that's skippable. And also if you skip it just drops prices on things. So I think it's a lot of product, but last year I felt like it was a lot of product that you kind of had to be involved. You had to like get some of it or you're getting left behind kind of. I think a lot of the stuff next year, if you don't get involved in it, you just get to reap the benefits of prices dropping and that's it.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Now some stuff could change, but I think I'm excited. The Commander Masters is nuts.
Oh.
I can't wait to see that. I'm not convinced it's going to be a fun draft.
It's going to take forever.
It's going to be slow, but there's going to be so many cool cards, so who knows?
It's going to be, honestly, for your LGSs who run like an F&M draft, I don't know if you're going to be able to run one of those at night.
No. It's going to be like a Saturday start at noon thing, like a tournament, in-house tournament would be.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you could draft that in 50 minutes with 60 cards that you have to go through.
Because we spent, how long did the one in Vegas we did? That was that 4 or 5 hours?
I think we were given an hour and a half to open
and build,
and trade. We were given like 90 minutes.
And then 2 games that each took in excess of an hour.
Yes. So you're looking at 4 to 5 hours.
Yeah. But I'm just pumped for the packs. I mean, there's just going to be a ton of cool stuff, and that's always exciting. So, yeah, looking forward to that one especially. And actually that's a good time of year too. I usually we don't get a cool product in November, which is when I want something.
We used to get Commander all the time.
Which is when I want something.
Evil Wizards. That was like my birthday present every year.
Those Saturdays in November and December when it's cold and miserable and crappy out, and you just like,
if you wore a jacket.
Go to the shop.
If you wore a jacket.
I should have, right.
Nina comes walking in today. It's so cold out. And he comes in like a light sweater,
I got a
light hoodie on.
A hoodie on and a t-shirt, like a big dummy.
I'm in a quarter zip, and I'm like, it's not cold out.
I just need to toughen up, I guess.
Must have been warm in Chicago.
Yeah, it was not. Well, it snowed the whole drive over there too that night. It was a miserable, sleety snowstorm. So,
yuck.
It was worth it.
Because it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Pretty much.
Early.
It's like that meme I saw on Facebook of the witch in a car, a turkey in a car, and then Santa Claus in a car. And he's like swerving in front of all of them, and the witch is yelling at him, "Get back in your own lane!"
My favorite one is because we just got some snowfall here in Eau Claire. Was someone posted, "We get snow in November because people decorate for Christmas way too early." Yeah, you know who you are.
You brought this on all of us.
My wife asked me too. She's like, "You want to go up on the roof and put up some lights on the outside of the house?" I'm like, "No, I really don't."
Maybe a month ago.
This is your first Christmas in the new place,
Yep.
right? Yeah, we this isn't ours, but we didn't do any Christmas stuff last year because we moved in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before Christmas, so we just didn't we were still unpacking, let alone putting up a tree.
Necessities.
Right. So my wife is really hyped for doing it this year. So I'm gonna be involved in that process. I can tell.
I mean, my mom asked me, "Are you getting a Christmas tree?" I'm like, "No."
It's not the same when you're single at Christmas, guy at Christmas. It's tough to get too hyped for it.
Although I did see meme related, someone posted Decorated for Christmas. Got my tree up and it's already decorated. It's a Christmas tree cake, Little Debbie, still in the package, tilted into the corner of their living room. Like, that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to end up eating it 5 minutes after I take that picture.
That's a good idea. Well, if you want to reach out to us and say hi and let us know how your Command Fest experience went, how'd you do that, Chris?
You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. Look us up on Facebook, searching CMDR Central. Find us on YouTube, searching CMDR Central, and find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
You can also head over to patreon.com and search CMDR Central to check out our reward tiers. If you're so inclined to support us financially, it helps keep the lights on, makes me wear pants when we move to video, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely.
Speaking of, we have 3 new supporters to say thank you to. So we want to say thank you to Esper Storm, Santiago Gonzalez, and Chris Lemise.
Thank you very much for supporting us. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And we also have some contest winners to announce.
Oh, we do. Excellent.
So the Patreon contest from last month was that Sir Gwen Hero of Ashrail deck that we built. The winner of that is Zach Reed. So Zach, congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'll reach out to you, get your address, and we'll get that deck ordered and shipped to me, and then boxed up and shipped to you.
All right.
And then for Twitter, we're giving away those Is It Ultra Pro sleeves. And those are going to go to JB Koch at Joseph B. Koch. So we'll shoot you a DM and get your info.
All right.
We'll get those out in the mail as soon as we can.
Excellent. Thanks for taking care of that, Max.
No problem.
And next week's show, we'll announce what we're doing this month, I believe, right?
We already have.
Oh, that's right. You guys took care of that
We
already.
took care of it.
I'm out of town, and
It was quite
The
amusing.
work
We're
is done.
we're sitting here recording. I was at Max Stops, and he's like, I don't know what we're going to do. So we just sat here, like in silence, staring at each
5
other,
minutes.
trying to figure it out.
Right before we recorded, too.
Yep.
Yeah, so the new contrast for this month, if you support us on Patreon or continue to support us by the end of the month, 2 lucky winners are going to get their choice of a Commander Central t-shirt from our Teespring store. It will not go towards our t-shirt contest. We did say that. And then for Twitter, we're giving away the Simic and Teamer pins that came in Dana's Collection Adventures.
that's right, because you guys were talking about looking up what the teamer symbol was.
We were confused.
All right.
It doesn't help.
It's a bear claw.
Well, it doesn't help that the color palette is Abzan colors, too.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it's green, white, and black.
Oh, you silly Tarkirians.
Yes.
All right, very cool. You can also find us on flipsidegaming.com.
Yeah, head over to flipsidegaming.com and use promo code CMDR in all caps to get 10% off all orders, $10 or more.
All right, excellent. I'm a little bit worried about this whole pie to the face thing that I'm going to get backstabbed.
I did say that on air.
You did. I heard all of that. Very, very devious, you two, and left to your own devices. Have to have.
I never told you about my idea either that we're going to discuss off
That's
air.
right.
Well, now I'm here, so you can't.
Oh, and we'll wait till you leave.
All right.
Okay, Max, text me. And then we can just sit here and like smiles and giggles as Dana's talking.
What's really bad is though that when you text me back, it'll come up on the computer screen.
That really does. Yeah, it pops up on the screen so everyone can see it. Well, we have a couple of decks we're going to take a look at here today.
Yeah, so these are the mini deck techs from Patreon. So the first one is from Eric Landis?
Eric Landis, a.k.a. Proggy Boog on Twitter.
Yes.
And Eric is a pretty prolific member of the community, particularly on Twitter, but he's popped up in a lot of different places. He was just in Seattle last weekend. I'm not sure if Joey played with him or not, but we got games with him in Vegas.
Yeah.
At least I did. I'm not sure if you played
I
with
did
him.
not, but I got to meet him, watched him play this deck that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
But
I played with Eric and his son Jack, both in Vegas.
yeah.
So he is around quite a bit, and this is the deck I played, his Mile deck, and we're going to look at that here briefly. I will just pause here for a second. I can just read the first paragraph, then we can go to Max, then Chris can read the last big one that begins with second. So I'll just read up until where it says beyond, and Max can take that one, and then
Sure.
Chris can take over the second one. Eric says this is his I just want to have fun deck. He wishes he could remember where he got the idea for it, but the idea is this. He has a core deck of 70-ish cards and a sideboard of 70-ish creatures with power 5 or greater, and before every game, he shuffles a sideboard up and deals out enough cards to bring the deck up to 100, and then shuffles those into the core deck. So each game plays differently, and it's always interesting to see what comes out of the deck.
Beyond that, it's a typical Mael deck. Ramp up to 6 mana as fast as possible, and then just get those beefy creatures into play, smash face. Ooh, my type of deck.
Yeah.
As this is a very non-typical approach to deck building, he does have a couple questions he'd like to see us try to address and maybe fix. The first being, how should we utilize the core deck to maximize the chances to hit for Mael, but still have it a functional deck? Obviously, any changes we want to make to the core deck to help it out, he is open to hearing.
Secondly, what are some suggestions for creatures in the sideboard? Now, as he said, there's like 70-ish or so that he had in there. I tend to try to avoid cast triggers, as that is not the primary way for this deck to to operate, because Mael puts it directly into play, correct?
Yes. Yep.
You don't actually cast it. But there's certainly times when I'm casting large creatures out of my hand. The biggest weaknesses in this deck is finishing out games. The deck tends to perform well up to a point, and then it just can't quite close the door. The meta mostly consists of small playgroup that meets at his house every week. There's 6 of them, and they tend to build decks in the border between focused and optimized. They also tend to avoid obvious win cons and go for more interesting ways to approach, like how they play their decks. There it is. As far as budget goes, he's pretty flexible, but he would like to keep cards under like the $50 limit, so somewhere in there. This isn't meant to be a highly optimized list, but one can pull it out towards the end of the evening when you really don't want to think a whole lot about it. Thanks a bunch, and I love the deck techs, because we love doing deck techs here at Commander Central.
Yes, we do.
All right. So, a couple things here. First of all, Mael digs 5 deep when you use the ability. So, I do think to consistently hit one of your creatures, you probably want 30 in the deck, which is, I think, roughly where he's at now when he shuffles us up, right?
Correct.
Yeah, there's 6 creatures in the core deck with another...
And he shuffles another 30 or so in.
Another 30 or so in.
So you could if you wanted to tweak that down, but I don't think you need to.
No.
But I think that's about roughly where I would run the number in this deck. So
I might even run it more.
Maybe.
Because seeing how this deck's meant to be more fun, just bring it out at the end of the night, don't have to think a whole lot about it. So if you say we're running 40 creatures, you're more likely to hit 2 per Mael spin, and then you're just like, oh, which one of these fun ones should I play?
So he's looking for ways to maybe win games, but that are unique. And I guess that's the tricky part about this kind of deck. Well, green in general, you're going to win with creature beats. And I don't know how you do that in a way that is unique, maybe.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's a thing that you can really do. But we do have a few suggestions here of things we would maybe shake up just to make it a little more consistent, because that makes decks more fun, I think, in general. So let's look at the land base briefly. He's got a good amount of basics. There's 16 here total in a 3-color deck. That's pretty good mix. 10 forests, 3 mountains, 3 plains. And as it's a casual deck, he's running a relatively casual land base. There's things like Blighted Steppe and Blighted Woodland. There's quite a few of the lands that ETB tapped and gain you a life, like Blossoming Sands. Evolving Wilds for a fetch versus something like Prismatic Vista or the true arid mesa type fetches. Is there anything you guys would really change there without changing the deck too much? Obviously, any deck is better with all ABUR duels and lands that don't come into play tapped, but it's not really what he's going for here.
The only thing, I didn't do the math on this, but with having such big of a sideboard, you have to do the math for them. So then your mana base is like perfect for the pips for each thing. That's the hardest part because you're playing so many extra cards.
Yeah.
That you got to make sure that, if I shuffle in randomly these cards, I'm not going to get, color screwed in the long run.
Right. You can't really look at this and go, okay, based on the number of pips in the deck, you should want to have this kind of bet because it's going to change every time.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I like the amount of basics. Just looking through the core deck and the sideboard of the random creatures you could shuffle in, it is majority green.
Yeah.
So I get why there's 10 forests in this deck. It is more casual, like we said. I think I would maybe prefer the check lands instead of some of these gain the life lands, just because they could still come in tapped. as a tempo hit.
particularly with this many basics in here, and there's a few lands with dual land types.
Honestly, I think the filters. 'Cause
Yeah,
it allows you to get different colors as needed. Like if you need double green and you have the green-white filter, you can filter in to create double green.
Right. Yeah, I like that. I like that probably suggestion as well, Chris.
There's a few relatively cheap lands that make 3 colors. You could run like Exotic Orchard. Mana Confluence is no longer cheap. Thank you, Pioneer.
Woohoo!
Yay!
But City of Brass still isn't terrible, and I think Reflecting Pool still isn't bad. So there's a few of those that are, will make whatever color you need, and that kind of works around the problem then of whatever mix of creatures you get, because it's just going to make your color,
Yep.
and that's what it is. How about the artifacts? Anything there you want to talk about briefly?
No Chromatic Lantern?
That's the main one, particularly now that it has been reprinted and it's only like $4, I want to say. I would absolutely put that over Darksteel Ingot. Again, especially in this deck where you just don't know what your color mix is going to be. That's just going to make life easier, and
It's going to make it super simple.
it's not going to change it's going to change your power level, because it's going to make it easier to cast things, but it's also one of those things that doesn't feel like it's an unfair power. It's just making life easier.
Yeah, and it's easily removed because
Absolutely.
it doesn't have indestructible like Darksteel Ingot
Yes.
does. So any mass removal of artifacts just gets rid of it.
Yeah, there's just no reason I don't think to not run that in shortcut figuring out your mana stuff when you can just tap a land and have it make what you want.
The one suggestion that is just an obvious one, and I don't know if he has access to it yet, because I know a lot of people actually don't, is the Arcane Signet.
Yeah. Because again, it makes whatever color you want, and you don't care what your mix has become.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. I think it's $8. I mean, it's pretty expensive. But would be a good one too for that exact same reason. It's
and
gonna
I don't know
make the color you need.
Yeah, and I don't know how the demand is on them right now. If they're even available for people to get their hands on, or
I was actually looking for one in Chicago at the Fest, and none of the vendors had.
okay, yeah, because I haven't looked because I have, I pre-ordered the Brawl decks, which I have yet to open, so mine are all sitting there. So I haven't actually physically looked for any yet.
Same.
But I know we have not received any in our LGS. I will tell you that right now.
Since the first wave.
Yep.
That's rough. Yeah, it's supposedly end of the month, end of November, the next wave is coming out. But who knows how many that will be, and is that going to be it then? Who knows? So, yeah, that would be a good one too. If you can get a hold of an Arcane Signet, that also makes life way, way easier. A couple Planeswalkers, Domri Raid and Gurk Caller of Beasts, which just work well in a beater deck like this. A couple instant spells, Naya Charm and a Worldly Tutor. Naya Charm's pretty on theme, and it's very universal and does things in this deck. Worldly Tutor obviously is a nice setup for Mael.
I find Worldly Tutor funny because it's like Worldly Tutor. It's a brand new deck. You flip through, you're like, oh no, I don't want this card in this deck right now. Or it's like looking for one. It's like, oh, I know it's in my sideboard. Let's hope I shuffled it. It's oh no, it's not in here.
Quickly on the Planeswalkers, I think this is where if we want to just up that creature count, like Chris was mentioning, I would cut the Planeswalkers. Garruk, Caller of Beast does put a green creature from your hand into play, and it does a Mael thing by looking through your deck. But I think you want those creatures in play more than in your hand.
Yeah.
So I would cut those for more creatures if we wanted to up this creature count to make Mael hit more consistently.
Of the two, Domri is the easiest cut, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's a fine Planeswalker, but that's it. I don't think he brings anything amazing necessarily here. We were talking about win conditions, and the enchantments have a couple of them, namely Warstorm Surge and Where Ancients Tread, both of which deal damage when big creatures come into play.
Yes, they do.
So though that was like before I looked at the deck when I read his description, I was like, well, there's always those two cards as other ways to win, but he has them both in here.
Yeah.
So that's pretty useful. There are 6 creatures. It looks like these are the 6 that always stay in the deck. Acidic Slime, Burnished Heart, Eternal Witness, Sakura Tribe Elder, Solemn Simulacrum, and Wood Elves.
It's pretty much just ramp cards and then one removal, one recursion card.
Yep, ramp, removal, recursion. Those are all solid. I get that. So let's jump over to the creatures, because that was where he had the main questions about what he should add or take out, that kind of thing. Is there any creatures that you guys would like to see him add to this deck or you think would go in here?
So looking through the sideboard of 65 other creatures, I'm surprised not to see the dinos. So Galta and Zapala for sure. What's the red one, Chris?
Oh gosh, I can't remember.
Atali?
Yes.
Atali. Yep. I think those would be great in this deck. They all do something, and specifically Galta, if it is stuck in your hand, your creature's filled with 5-power creatures.
Yep.
It's going to be 2 mana to cast, or, consistently.
Put in a World Spine Worm. Or is that one in here? I haven't gotten all the way down there. Nope. World Spine Worm. Oh, I'm just because I'm so hurt right now because I got killed by a World Spine Worm and Pioneer. Ugh.
Well, so to synergize with creatures, I would not mind seeing something like Lurking Predators in this deck. It's a great card. It's a fun card, I think. And the fact that it kind of gives you a win condition to a degree, I think I'd like to see that maybe in here. Maybe in place of that Domri card or something. Creature-wise, the one that jumped out at me that I think would be really useful here is Decimator of Provinces. In addition to, I agree with the Dinosaurs, Max, but Decimator is relatively inexpensive at this point in time. It's a 7/7, so Maya will hit it. And when you cast this spell, creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample till end of turn. So it gives you the option to also cast it and have it be an
Especially
overrun.
if it's in your hand.
If it's in your hand, yeah. And the fact that it's an emerge thing, you could sacrifice a creature and get it out.
Yep.
So that's one I think gives you a backup win condition here as well, and it's a useful creature in the deck, and it's not Crater Hoof, because obviously Crater Hoof would be one that, but I'm guessing both because of the way he said he didn't want to run like a really obvious win condition.
Yes.
And that's Crater Hoof.
Yeah.
Decimator's kind of your dime store Crater Hoof to a degree. So that's one I would definitely consider here.
Yeah, I'm super impressed. This really speaks to the fun of this deck. There's no Eldrazi Titans
Yes, there's not.
in this list at
which
all.
are really easy. Like, I see them in almost every Mile list, and he's not running those. So, is there a Zakama Primal Calamity in here?
There is not.
Zakama is just so much value.
And it is an ETB trigger.
Yeah.
He wants to avoid the ETB
does.
triggers, though.
I thought it was cast triggers.
Yeah, I think it was a cast trigger he's looking to
Yeah,
avoid.
to avoid cast triggers.
Yeah.
So anything with an ETB is fine.
And Zakama, again, feels like one of those creatures. Like, Zakama's an absolute beast.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if you get Zakama out, you deserve to have a beast play to a degree. I mean, like, it's expensive to cast. You have to jump through a few hoops. And, yeah, you got to get it on top with Mile. But, I don't know. I think it's... No one's going to be upset when that comes down like they would with maybe, say, Vorinclex.
Yeah.
Which nobody ever wants to see, including the person who casts it sometimes because you're trying to keep track of what lands were tapped when. So that would be one that jumps out at me. Anything else from you guys? He's got a really good mix of creatures here.
Yeah, there's everything from Absent Angel of Hope to something as like Blazing Archon to Vigor. We're all over the place here, which is great. It's not your typical most recommended cards off of EDH Rec.
Right. And you could. There's all kinds of stuff like you could add in here if you wanted to dig a little bit deeper. Wayward Swordtooth is a great card that's almost always useful.
Carnage Tyrant.
Yeah. Particularly the last couple of years, the dinosaurs especially, you've gotten a lot of ones that would qualify as because they're 5/5s and would do a lot of good in the stack.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs are big. They should be 5/5s.
And even the Titans aren't in here, but like World Breaker would be a perfectly solid addition here.
Yes, it would.
It's a good card. It has a little bit of recursion.
And it's a 5/7 with reach.
Can solve a problem. It has reach, which is pretty useful sometimes here as well.
Especially I suppose you're in white. You have the angels, so
Yeah.
Realistically, there are 778
There's a lot
creatures
of
he
creatures
could
you
put in
add.
this deck.
Absolutely. If you wanted to carry on the
challenge.
Yep.
Carry around
Carry a fat pack.
a 1,000 count box and just okay. Here's my deck. Here's all the cards that are probably gonna. One of these, like 30 of these cards, are gonna go in. Let's just randomly do it.
If you want, whenever a new creature in these colors with power 5 or greater comes out, sleeve it up and throw it in the box.
That would be great. The Mael Cube.
I would love that because what I would do is I would just set the box on the table and she'd be like, okay, without you guys looking at them, want you guys to pull out 30 of these, and this is what's going to be in the deck.
Yeah. Yeah, you very easily could.
Something like Avatar Slaughter would be cool in this deck. Gives all your creatures double strike, makes everything attack for everybody.
Yeah.
It's for everybody, so all creatures get double strike, but that's fun.
And it could be a win condition because you are probably going to have better blockers than anybody else.
Yeah.
Most of the time. The one I always want to see in decks, but is not in here, is Mael's Area, which is an alt-win condition. But I don't think this deck has enough ways to maybe take advantage of it. But it would give you one more win, and it's a card that doesn't see a whole lot of play.
How does that one win?
So it starts off, beginning of your upkeep, you put a +1 counter on each creature with power 5 or greater, I believe. And then you gain a life for each creature. I think it's 10 greater. And then at that point, if you control a creature with power 20 or greater, you win the game.
Yes, that is exactly right,
All
actually.
Right. I'm not even looking at it. I just remembered that. How much life do you gain? Is it 5 or 3?
At the beginning, then you gain 10 life if you
10,
control
okay.
a creature with power 10 or greater.
So, I mean, that's a one that you could run here. I don't know if he has the board state to support it sometimes, but it gives you an interesting alt-win condition, too.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to do an alt-win, and probably could be pretty feasible in this deck.
Yeah, I think so. So I've played against this deck, like I said. I like it a lot, and it's other than like just shuffling in more creatures, because there's just it's tough to make suggestions to take things out. I don't know what to say to remove because it's.
I don't think I would remove
deck.
anything.
Just keep adding to it.
I kind of like you weren't really serious when we said that about adding more creature, about just making it into a cube, but I kind of think that's not a bad idea.
I really do like
just
that idea.
Adding more creatures almost.
I mean, it's something that's like piquing my interest of something I'd want to do.
Yeah.
Only I'd play like Ramos as my general just because that is just
Oh God! Then you have every creature. At least this one you're limited to Naya. Naya 5 power and over. But I mean, you're still going to get like 3 or 4 creatures, I would bet, every single game.
Yeah.
Or every single expansion that comes
True.
out. I mean, you could then say like no vanillas or something. Maybe that would be a rule. If it's vanilla, you don't run it. But yeah, well, Eric, thanks for showing us off your deck here. If you are at a Magic Fest and Eric is there, or a Command Fest or whatever, I would absolutely recommend finding him. He usually posts on Twitter what he's doing or where he's at. Find Eric and play this deck. It's super fun to play.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to trying to get a game in against this at the next event we meet at.
It's a unique experience, and I'll be curious to see if he takes it in any particular direction. And also, I'm curious if anybody else out there has a deck that they've done something weird or unique with like this, where it's kind of rotating every turn, whether it's you changing out your commander or you randomly picking cards for it like this. I'd like to hear if there's some more examples of this, because I was really kind of blown away when I first saw this deck, what a clever idea it was.
Yeah, I had no clue when I first, because when Max sent the link for it, I typed in the link and I'm looking at the deck. I'm like, there's not enough cards in here.
Yeah.
So then I go back through and read the description. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, the next deck we have to take a look at here is from listener Tyler Coates. Tyler has a deck he calls his Build-A-Bear deck, which the second or third bear-themed deck we've had that's came across the show.
Yeah.
Rafael Garcia is going to be jealous of this.
The queen leads it.
Probably not.
Probably not. He's got the shirtless bear fighter deck, and no one can compete with that.
And he has an Eula deck, I think, too.
I think he does have a Eula deck, yeah. Tyler says his meta is usually tuned roughly 6 to 8 in power level. The goal of this deck is an artifact deck in mono green, which is really bizarre, and I dig. It has ways of making bears through engines like Words of Wilding plus Skull Clamp plus a creature plus Azad Altar, and things like Universal Automaton and printed in a prototype portal that you can sack with the Draw Scorpion. The weaknesses as well, it's artifacts and it's in mono green, which isn't the most synergistic thing sometimes. If he doesn't get the pieces he needs, it kind of falls apart. His budget is $20 less per card unless you feel something that is super, super needed. So we mentioned his commander. It is Ayula, Queen Among Bears, and she was from Modern Horizons, right?
Correct.
Green and colorless for a bear. Whenever another bear enters the battlefield under your control, choose one, put 2 +1 counters on target bear, or target bear you control fights target creature you don't control. So it's a higher, he's trying to do a higher powered artifact synergy type deck in a higher powered meta. And that's a rough ask.
Yes.
There's a lot of good pieces in here. He's running Metal Worker, fast mana like Lotus Petal, all 3 of the Urza's lands for big mana. There's combo pieces, Microsynth Lattice, KCI for KCI combos.
Metal Workers in here.
Such a good card. Rocket Launcher as a win condition, along with Ballista, Overrun, Triumph of the Hordes. Blasting Station, Grinding Station, Salvaging Station, all which are pretty loopy. Life from the Loam, always a good value piece. So the biggest problem here is you really have to stare at this to try to find out what the combo interactions are.
Yes, you do.
And there's a few of them that are written down. We mentioned a few. He's got like Soul Foundry plus Woodland Changeling plus Lattice. Life from the Loam plus Ayula's Influence. There's things like that. He can make a bunch of mana, if not infinite mana, that he can put into Rocket Launcher or Ballista. He can go wide with overruns into Triumph of the Hordes or tokens, that kind of thing. So those are his main ways he can win.
Oh, Rocket Launcher says any target. I've been misreading this card all day long. I'm like, why? What is this good for except killing creatures? And I realize it says any target.
It's basically,
now I get it, everybody. I do this. It's fine. I know how to play the game.
It's basically kind of a bad Ballista.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually surprised there wasn't a Triskelion in here too, in some way. I guess there's probably it's not as easy to loop, to go infinite as you can with Ballista.
Yeah.
So this one is out of my wheelhouse a little bit because I am bad at obscure combos. Chris, having played Modern, there's some KCI pieces in here, it looks like.
There is.
For KCI
I'm trying
combo.
to figure out what exactly the KCI combo is with Scrap Trawler in here.
Chromatic Star.
It could be, but you don't really make infinite mana with it. Because there are eggs pieces. I just don't know. I'm looking hard.
Ichor Wellspring usually does something in that loop. This one, I like the deck in theory. Unfortunately, even after looking at it for 45 minutes, I don't understand all of the interactions. So I think this is one we're definitely going to have to put out there to have other people take a look at, because I'm kind of at a loss as to what to suggest to change here. And sometimes you do that because you because the deck's really tuned, which I think this one is relatively tuned. I'm just struggling to make suggestions because it's so far out of my loop of the kind of decks I brew.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that boat as well, Dana, but I definitely have some suggestions.
Okay.
Just maybe this might just be somewhat better than something he's already running.
Sure.
First being Soul's Majesty is in this deck.
And that should probably just generally be
Return of the Wild
Speaker.
Yes, it's going to draw you cards, or it's going to pump your bears.
And as a backup plan, if you have, the go wide, it can be a backup win condition.
Yeah, I mean, +3/+3 to all non-human creatures.
Rishkar's Expertise is a great card, and I remember us 6 months after it was also talking about what a great sleeper that was. Return of the Wild Speaker is this year's version of that, where 6 months from now we're going to be talking about how many decks we've seen Return of the Wild Speaker in.
Yep. He's running Doubling Season and Primal Vigor. I don't see any reason not to throw the third one, Parallel Lives, in here as well. I get Parallel Lives doesn't do +1/+1 counter interactions with his commander, but it's going to make extra tokens off of Worlds of Wilding.
I'm actually was kind of surprised there wasn't a Hardened Scales in here.
Yeah, that definitely should be in here as well.
Particularly the way Ayula works, and with things it gives you a few more options, things like Ballista. So yeah, that was one I was a little bit surprised at. I'm a fan of Prototype Portal. In general, there's the artifact lands in here. Even if you're not using it for a win condition, you can use it for a ramp outlet, making Darksteel Citadels and making Tree of Tail tokens.
Or Universal Automaton, like he said in his notes, just making bears.
Yep. I mean, even if you're like making a Lotus Petal every turn, that's still not bad. Tapping that to kick out a free Lotus Petal.
Right. He's running Ayula's Influence. It's
Yep.
triple green to discard a land card, create a 2/2 bear token. He's only running 35 lands. So I think like Crucible should be in this deck so you can get those lands back. Especially like late game when you've
What life
discarded.
from the Loams for?
Okay, true.
Yeah.
Another way to get him back wouldn't hurt.
He does have 3 cost reducers in here: Foundry Inspector, Semblance Album, and Ugin the Ineffable. So Foundry Inspector is good. I like it. I like Semblance Anvil as well. And for this deck, I think losing the artifact to reduce by 2 it probably helps with some of these combos. Cloud Key is really, really good. It's also 3 mana, comes into play, and reduces mana cost of whatever spell type you pick. Usually you'd pick artifacts in this deck. I would be very tempted to run that over Foundry Inspector, or run them both if you're looking to do infinite things here with cost reducers, just because it's much tougher to remove at instant speed. There's just colors that can't deal with artifacts, and whereas Inspector is going to die to creature removal.
Yeah.
But I'd be really tempted to run both. And we just talked about this earlier in the show, but like this is the kind of deck and the way the deck is playing that I'm surprised there isn't Divining Top and Mystic Forge to do that loop here as well.
Half of them are in here.
Yeah. So you have your cost reducers. That's one I would be very tempted to try to do in this particular deck to get that draw my entire library and win the game thing going on.
Is Terrarian better than Commander Sphere?
In general,
No.
I don't think it is.
But, I mean, I feel like either way, they're just both being sacked to KCI.
Yeah.
One hit Terrarian at least draws you the card when it hits the graveyard. Commander Sphere, you have to sack to draw the card. So maybe it is better in the combo sense.
Sure. And Terrarian does come into play tapped.
Yep, but if you're going to play it for a mana, sack it right away to draw that card,
Yeah.
and then bring it back over and over.
Yeah.
Where Commander Sphere, you do actually have to sacrifice it to itself, essentially.
Well, I have seen a lot of combos in here, but it takes more than just like 3 cards.
Sure, yes. There's a lot of 4-card
Yes.
combo pieces, and unfortunately you're in green where you can't easily tutor up.
I was
any of
looking
these
for
pieces.
a good like 3-card combo with KCI, and I just cannot find it.
What are some of the 4-card combos you saw?
Let me see, where was it? Blah, 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 blah. So Soul Foundry with Junk Diver or with Mirror Retriever plus Scrap Trawler and KCI, and then I know there's an untapper in here somewhere where you just start sacking it off, you untap it, create another one, sack it off, untap it, keep going that route.
Because there's all the stations, like the salvaging
Yep.
station and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
One card I'm glad to see in this deck is Crashing Drawbridge. It's the 0/4 with Defender for 2 mana, but you can tap it and creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. That's a legit solid card in a lot of decks, and I like to see it here.
I would love to see it played more.
Yeah. I'm actually debating putting it in my Vela deck. Because the one card that's kind of underperformed for me in there is the construct for Modern Horizons that has modular that you can sacrifice an artifact to go get another construct. I've forgotten the name of it already.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It just there's like no. I've just had too many situations where there's nothing like nothing is worth sacrificing to go get something else. So I feel like it just doesn't do much, and the modular is almost never relevant. So I was looking to replace it with something, and I've been pondering Crashing Drawbridge. I feel like the option to give creatures haste is something that will be relevant more often. You can't attack, but that's not a huge deal. So I like that card, and I'm glad to see it's already worked its way into this deck. Yeah, we can probably dig for a couple more like 4 or 5 card combos, but
It seems like a very hard deck to play, honestly.
Yes, that's the other thing, right? Like, this isn't a deck you play after 9 o'clock at night.
This isn't a deck I play after 5 o'clock at night.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I would love to play against this deck, though, and maybe have it explained to me.
I don't even know if I want to play. I want to watch it play. I don't think I want to play against it. And then even then I get too confused. I want to watch it so I can focus here. Maybe you want to run a couple more ways to get your Urza's lands, because there's not a lot of ways to go retrieve them necessarily. But, I mean, do you want to be how much...
Dartling with a crop rotation or
and
a
I guess,
Sylvan Scrying.
technically those are in the maybe board. They're not even in the main deck, so... this is one I think we absolutely just need to post the link out there and see what people have to say.
Yes.
Because it's just too much. It's just too dense. I like it. I think it's super cool.
Oh, so do I. And Tyler, I'm sure we'll talk about this once this show airs.
Yeah. Because there's a lot going on here. But hey, mono green artifacts, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love things like that. So respect for coming up with a way to do it. And even things like using things like animation module, detection module, fabrication module that very rarely see any play. But if you know what that particular combo is you're doing with them, you can make them do good, really, really good work. And people are going to probably not remove them because they're not going to understand what's about to happen. So... Well, Tyler, thank you very much for sharing this deck with us and letting us take a look at it and talk about it, despite us not being able to contribute very much because this one runs deep.
Yeah.
So
I really like this. I mean, this is like reminding me of modern KCI.
Yes, this is a modern deck. This feels like a modern deck to me.
Does he? Now that you brought up decoction module, sorry to sidetrack here. That makes energy whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control. Can he go infinite and make enough energy to repeat Aetherworks Marvel? Because then you at least have a way to dig to find your pieces.
You very well could.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. Gross.
And then Aetherworks Marvel would see play in EDH.
There we go. I like it.
You may cast the card without paying its mana cost, so I mean, it'll get you anything.
Yeah.
There you go. I contributed something.
That and Rocket Launcher.
And Rocket Launcher. I figured that, no, you guys taught me that.
Launcher.
Well, but that's great, though. Like, the Rocket Launcher is a card that you never see, and, like, this is a deck where it does work. That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a card. I'm like, is this like a silver bordered thing? Like.
So, Tyler, apologies for not being a lot of help here, and props for coming up with our super cool deck.
You have stumped us.
Absolutely. This is great, and we didn't have much to add, but thanks for sharing it so we could share it. We'll absolutely get this link out there when the show goes live.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I think that's all we got.
Okay.
Relatively short show as you're easing me back into my podcasting duties after a week off. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. I think we're going to have a guest on for next Monday's show. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The famous Dan Kraus of many podcasts, guest appearances. He's been on at least Commander Social, and his name has popped up on other shows. I think CCO's talked about him before.
We've talked about him before.
We've talked about him. He's a Patron supporter. He's a friend of ours that we hung out with in Vegas.
His decks are frequently featured on the viewer-submitted decks for the Commander Versus series.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, he's been on there before.
So you've probably heard his name. You've probably seen him on Twitter.
Absolutely.
But he will be on the show with us next week.
In-house, too, not just remote.
In-house,
he's going to be here visiting.
He'll be here for GP Max's house.
I'm excited for that weekend.
What's GP Max's house?
A weekend of EDH and shenanigans.
Everyone's invited.
Scumbaggery. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for listening. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by Ken Peddle. You can find him on Twitter at LOAD3R. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDRCentral_Max. And you can find Chris at WiseSquishy1. We'll be back on Thursday with another Deck Tech. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.